we have to compete with lower prices. We're not the cheapest solution in market, but that's because we pay better salaries. So, so I'd say that like transparency, we share with our clients exactly how much the multiplier, the team member gets paid, the benefits, we pay healthcare, social security, HMO, PhilHealth, 13th month. We sort of have that level of transparency. And I guess the decision around all of this is that we want to be the employer of choice. We want people to absolutely love what they do day in, day out.
Welcome to IRL, or inREAlity. My name is Rhea, and this video podcast is where I speak with people from the BPO industry and the corporate world. Watch and listen as we share unscripted stories of being a corporate creative. Our guest for today is Yoni Kozminski, founder and CEO of MultiplyMii's. It's an offshore staffing solution that aims to help companies all over the world increase their productivity by outsourcing to the Philippines. Yoni has always been a great leader and teammate, very approachable, and has a no BS approach to everything. I can't wait for you to meet him. I've been working with MultiplyMii's for over a year now, and it really is changing the BPO landscape in the Philippines. MultiplyMii's is hiring talented Filipinos and providing long-term, stable employment opportunities, especially in the e-commerce, Amazon, and digital industries. We also provide a competitive compensation and benefits package, all while working from the comfort of your home. I truly loved speaking with Yoni in this episode, and I'm sure you will learn a lot from his insights.
All right, everyone, let's welcome our guest for today. Say hello to Yoni. Hi, Yoni. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Raya. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's not all the time that we get to speak with someone like you. So thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for inviting me and having me on. I think it's amazing everything that you do and everything that you preach and everything that you're looking to build support. So honestly, it's an honor and a privilege to be sitting here with you today.
Wow, thank you. Thanks, Yoni. So let's actually start with a bit about your background, probably just how every interview starts, and leading to why and how you started MultiplyMii's and also the path that you took to get to where you are today.
For sure. I'd be happy to, and it will help sort of anyone listening understand and hopefully make good decisions around sort of their path. But mine, to sum it up as quickly as possible, my career very much started in, it was in creative advertising, digital marketing. So I spent nearly a decade in the space building digital marketing strategy for the likes of Sony, MasterCard, Mercedes-Benz, Medtronic, enterprise clients, always from the view of smaller businesses. So I was the 15th employee or the 10th employee, and we grew to about 35. And when I moved to the US, I'm Australian, if you're not picking up from the accent. I know we know each other very well, but for those listening, I started my career in Australia and then moved to the US and did, again, digital strategy and work in the space in the US for 3 years. And all along that journey, I always sort of knew by the end of it what great talent looked like. I had a pretty keen eye for designers and developers and content writers and copywriters and, production, the works. That was sort of my world. And so I stepped into an e-commerce business as effectively as an owner in 2018. I moved to Israel about 4 years ago, and there was sort of what opened my eyes up to the opportunity of the Amazon ecosystem. I'd been pretty well versed in inside of e-commerce up until that point, but it was actually that experience. It was actually that experience. There's nothing you can do when that happens.
Yeah.
But really, where I guess the story gets a little bit more interesting was when I did move to Israel and I did go through this experience, and I started working much more deeply with the Philippines. And so until that point, I'd lived in Australia, I'd lived in the US, I'd worked with effectively countries and companies and cultures all over the world. But it was when I was working there that I found like a true connection and understanding of the caliber of talent that exists in the Philippines, the culture, the people. And so what I did there was I built an agency effectively for this e-commerce and Amazon business. And then that was really that was the light bulb moment. There was a few light bulb moments there, but that was sort of the catalyst for MultiplyMii, where what we do today is we're very much in rare. You know about this a lot better than most as well, being in the inner workings here. But our objective really as a business, and I guess I know that I'll probably skip through a few sections here, so pull me up at any point if you need. But I guess that one of the driving points or the decisions around MultiplyMii was that for me, I felt like the experience and the situation was broken. And what I mean by that is that I used to go to onlinejobs.ph and FreeUp and Upwork and a lot of platforms to find talent. I used to spend a lot of time doing it, globally and particularly and specifically in the Philippines. And what I understood when I left that last business, when I asked our now COO, is what were you getting paid at the peak of your career when, inside of corporate Philippines? And to my shock, it was about 3 times what we were paying her at the time. And I just said, something doesn't make sense. Why would I, as a company that's, the company that I helped scale, it went from $2 to $5 million in revenue, and it was very profitable. And so here we had people who were making a lot of money, and the economics didn't make sense. Why would a company out of the US effectively pay so little when they can afford to pay a whole lot more? And so that was sort of the stepping stone of MultiplyMii, is that we want to actually create real opportunities working in real companies where you don't have to sort of race to the bottom and say that I'm going to do work for $1 or $2 or $3 or $4 an hour. It's really about, high level professionals having impact, looking at the business in a different capacity. So that was the start of the idea of MultiplyMii. And today, the company now, I think we're nearly at about 130 jobs that we've created since its inception less than 18 months ago. All of those roles are in the Philippines. And so that really is the guiding light behind MultiplyMii. But I feel like I've been thrown off from the dog barking and going nuts. So have I answered your question?
Yes, no problem. Thank you so much for explaining. I think it's a great way to really explain to us and our viewers how you started MultiplyMii, and most importantly, why you started it, because of the experience that you've had. And I, for sure, one of the highlights that I've had in the past year was definitely joining MultiplyMii, and later on we'll talk more about that. And you mentioned you've had experience in digital advertising or creative advertising, and you're helping mostly online businesses. So I'd also like to know, why did you decide to go that route, like helping online businesses like Amazon, e-commerce, and digital agencies?
So that really was my background. Like, I found my way into my first client ever was Mercedes-Benz, and they had no social media presence at all at that point. So I was working with Mercedes-Benz Australia and New Zealand, launching their Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Pinterest, and effectively the works there. And so that was just sort of, I think it was a little bit fortunate, but it was something that I was always passionate about. I studied architecture and dropped out to take up marketing. And so that was really sort of where I guess my passion was. And that was sort of, I guess the entry point to it.
Yes, nice. That's a nice thing to do, especially now that we're in the middle of the pandemic. And I guess if you're a business owner and your business is not online, that you're missing out a lot, right? So I'm really glad to be able to work with you guys, especially with my experience before working with Amazon. I think now with MultiplyMii, I was also able to really understand how Amazon businesses work, and it's such a learning experience for me as well. And let's talk more about the leadership that you have with MultiplyMii. As I've mentioned earlier, it's not all the time that we get the insights from a CEO or the founder like you, but to the public, people know you as CEO, MultiplyMe, Escala, but you're really very approachable and welcoming. At least that's how I see you from the very start. And
I'm glad. I'm glad.
yeah, put a high level of trust to your team, especially that we're all, working remotely. So what is the motivation behind this type of leadership?
Yeah, well, I would say I think that at its core, like we're all people doing business with people. And I think like as a driving objective, it should be about how do we help each other? How do we actually, empower, engage, and enable growth? And so I would say, one, like all these like I even hate titles. It almost makes me cringe hearing like CEO, but I think that the whole thing is that, when I look at leadership, I always, and I know we get to sit and do brainstorming sessions and we work on, our social and digital strategy together, and we sort of work through those aspects. But at the end of the day, you want to find the best people who are, in ways self-motivated and are, just as curious as you are. And, I feel like it's impossible to scale a business if you have just people who aren't empowered and who aren't passionate about what they do. So the level of trust is really something that it's like, it's innocent until proven guilty, essentially. Like, I will absolutely do my due diligence and, make sure that I've had, a range of conversations with people and make sure that it's the right person in the right seat. You can interview, people can interview great and deliver poorly too. But I would say in terms of like the leadership style, I want to bring in people who are better than me at the things that they're best at. Like you're a prime example of that, Rhea. Like you come in and I know anything that is ever put in your hands, I don't have to think about it again. It's not only going to come back, but it's going to be better than what I would have dreamt up myself if I tried to take it on by myself. And so I think that my responsibility as a leader in the business is I work for everyone else. How can I empower the team to achieve more? Because if I can do that, then, everything else will figure itself out.
Right. Thank you. Thanks, Yoni, for your kind words. I mean, I'm very, very blessed to be a part of your team because I'm learning so much. And it's nice that you pointed it out, all this, thing about leadership, especially that a lot of the companies nowadays are shifting to remote work and may have like difficulty trusting their team, I guess, because of the arrangement. But I think our viewers out there can also learn from this and hopefully be able to apply that kind of principle that, if, in their teams, especially remote teams nowadays. So yeah, we're hoping.
Well, I would say on that, like if I looked at it in the opposite angle, like if I'm looking at, okay, right, me as the leader of the business, who do I want to bring in? For anyone sort of watching out there, I just had a situation, just to give you an example, that happened just today. We had a guy who was looking for an opportunity and he came into the info at section. Anyway, somehow the email found its way onto my desk, and I just, I'm not one of those people who are too important to do things. I will respond. I feel like the people who have sort of an ego attached to it will never go anywhere because, I am just like everyone else. I shouldn't and don't get any special preferential treatment. And I honestly hate it when people do give me, lenience around things. But one thing that this guy did was that he pointed out that there was a spelling mistake on our website. Oh. And so like just showing that level of curiosity and proactivity in doing something that there was no expectation around it. They could have just, I'm sure lots of people, if he's picking it up, I guarantee you a lot of people have seen that. But what that little bit of impact had for me in just literally taking the time to say, well, what it said to me is a lot of things. I've really reviewed what is happening inside of the company, and I've looked at it at such a deep level that I picked up on an error or whatever that is. So I'd say like on the converse, like as in looking for employment to build that trust and to work with leaders, it's really like, how can I deliver on something that was never even asked of me? How can I look to add value? Where's the value creation?
Right. I like that. I think that was the one that you sent earlier. Was it? Yeah, I love the
Exactly right.
proactivity there. And yesterday I spoke with Kat as well, and we talked about being proactive, which is, I think, one of the most important like skills that you can have nowadays. Like, you don't just wait to be told what to do, and then have the initiative to do something. And I think that's one good quality that we can like impart to our viewers, especially to those who are still starting their career, entry level, might be a bit scared to like come forward and say something because they're new. So I think it's really important that you mentioned that. And speaking of that, like people who are starting their career, I know there's no shortage of videos and articles talking about like why foreign clients want to work with Filipinos, like why they love Filipinos. But I'd like to know your personal experience this time. Like, what was it like for you, which made you eventually decide to hire in the Philippines?
Yeah. In a word, Joan. No.
Oh, Madam Joan. You should be listening to this, Joan.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'll tell you the thing. I mean, Joan was a huge reason to be
Wow.
fair, and also working with Jason as well. I think that for me, like I said, I've worked with a lot of different. I've worked with, I'm Australian. I worked with Australia, the US, Canada, the UK, Bangladesh, Eastern Europe, India, and sort of, I've been around the block, and I've worked with lots of different cultures and countries, and and the works. And when I started working with Filipinos and Filipinas, I almost felt like and it's weird to say, but I almost felt like from a cultural perspective, I almost felt more connected in ways, because there's lots of differences when you work from country to country. Like, from my personal experience, and this is not, it's hard to make wide sweeping statements, but when I look at the Australian culture, it's very efficient. People come in, they get their work done, they move on, that they work hard, they play hard. That's Australian life, and you have a lot of sort of time off, and that's Australia, which is a great sort of culture. In the US, I found that it was very much about just showing face. Like, it wasn't about how effective you were in your delivery. It was like, if you were available, then that was what was the most valuable. When I started working with the Philippines, it was just the level of intelligence that exists. So I would say, I mean, our business is 100% outside of me and Lippy. Everyone else is Filipino, and we won't hire anyone at our current state that isn't Filipino. And that's our driving mission, is to expose the incredible talent that exists in the Philippines, and to ultimately have an impact on the average salary. We want to see that driven up. But it was the intelligence, the loyalty, the respect, and just, I guess, all of the characteristics that make it just an incredible culture. Like, there's definitely challenges, I would say. Like, when I talk about culturally, like you were just pointing out before, it might be a bit intimidating to come, as an entry level role. Like, I would say, like, the one thing that you don't need to be worried about is that if you're working in a business, if you've gotten the job, like, you're there because they want your opinion, they want your input. They don't want you to just sort of do just the status quo of what's delivered. Like, every single time you can display an area of, I made this improvement, or just questioning aspects. You don't have to be confrontational about it, but at least sort of labeling it out and sort of looking to build a solution that might be better. I think that's one of the things that, again, speaks volumes. But getting back to the question at hand, it was just my experience with the incredible talent and the culture and the people. And obviously, the fact that the cost of living is lower makes it a whole lot more attractive from a financial impact perspective. And that's how we've been able to grow from having a team of 4 in January last year to 130 jobs created now, almost exclusively, virtually exclusively in the Philippines.
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear that we are growing. Of course,
Yeah.
most especially with the jobs that you're helping provide to the Filipinos here in the Philippines. And I'm also glad that you mentioned like a sort of comparison of how like Australians are when it comes to working, and Americans, and of course also Filipinos. I think that's a really nice learning point as well. Coming from someone who's not a Filipino, of course, like how you'd think Filipinos can improve as well in terms of their working relationship with their managers, their customers, and their clients. So I think that's really nice. And to everyone who's watching, we've talked so much. We've talked a lot about Yoni's experience with working with Filipinos. But for now, let's have a quick icebreaker. Because why not? Yes. Let's have a quick would you rather session. I'm just gonna ask you would you rather questions, and all you have to do is answer. No need for any explanation. All right, are you ready?
Is it okay if I'm scared right now?
You shouldn't be.
Okay.
This is a surprise,
All right, I'll trust
by
you.
the way, to you.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's start with, would you rather do something you love and make just enough money to get by, or do something you hate but make millions of dollars?
The first one.
Definitely.
Something I love but just get by.
Would you rather have a job where you talk to people all day, or a job where you stay at your desk by yourself all day?
Talk to people.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yes.
It'll be
Would you-
worrying if I said the other way around.
I know. I mean, I know what your answer will be, but okay. The next one. Would you rather write a New York Times bestseller or win an Olympic gold medal?
Ooh. New York Times.
New York Times. Okay. Would you rather swim the Atlantic Ocean or bike across the United States?
Swim the Atlantic.
Wow. And by then you'll have to win the Olympic gold medal for swimming the Atlantic Ocean.
100%. That's how you build up into it, right?
That's the goal. Okay. Next, have an unlimited supply of cell phone data, or an unlimited supply of gas in your car.
Ooh. I would say gas in my car.
For sure. It gets expensive.
Yeah.
And the last question is, would you rather live without the internet or live without AC, fan, or heating?
I mean, I'd have to go without the AC, fan, and heating, but it would be a struggle.
It would be a struggle. You'll have to find a place where you can, relax, especially still with internet. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Yoni, for participating in our quick icebreaker. Let's continue our conversation with a lighthearted question this time. And speaking to our viewers who are watching or listening to this, I'm asking this question because I feel like people in the company look up to their leaders all the time, and maybe they feel like these people are not capable of making mistakes or probably have it all figured out. So I'd like for you to share to us, what do you do outside of work when you're not like building your empire, building the company?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll say that anyone who says that they've got it all figured out is just stay away from that individual, because no one's got it worked out. But I mean, for me, outside of work, even inside of work, I'm just like everybody else, but especially outside, I would say for me, I'm a pretty regimented person. And I would say for anyone who's looking to succeed in life and in business, whatever that looks like to you, I think consistency and commitment and being, somewhat regimented are sort of fundamental building blocks. So for me, I'm big into swimming. That's why I chose the Atlantic. I love working out. So anything from kickboxing all the way through to lifting weights and, everything in between. I adopted a dog that I know you've seen a bunch of times, Rhea, and everyone has now heard her. So, the dog, restaurants, I'm big into my mindfulness practices. So like meditation and gratitude journaling. I could keep listing, but the reality is I'm just like everybody else.
That's nice. It's nice. At least we will all feel that you're also a human being. You're not a superhuman. And
Exactly.
that's why you build a team to also help you with everything in the company, right?
100%.
And again, also talking to our viewers, I'd also like everyone to know that regardless of whatever stage in your career you are at right now, that it's very important to take some time out of work, to take care of yourself and do something that, will make your life a bit better outside of work, especially now that we're in a pandemic. And yeah, thanks for sharing. And now we're slowly going to transition to a more serious question, I guess. And just for context, after working with you for a year now, I can truly say that MultiplyMe is a company that is really changing the landscape of the BPO industry, especially here in the Philippines and in terms of salary. So before, I kind of interacted with a client who asked me if I could find a contractor or a BPO employee for him, but then he said he doesn't want to hire BPO companies because it seemed like there's a substantial markup on costs, and then the end will be, or the result will be, that the employees will be underpaid, like severely underpaid. But this is definitely not the case with MultiplyMe. So with you providing this competitive compensation and benefits, and as you mentioned during the early part of our conversation, what would you say is the trigger behind all this?
Yeah, so I would say I'd say a few things. I would say one is that when you look at the DNA of the culture of the company, and you look at when we started the business, it was just me at the start, but I brought on two people in Joan and Lippy who also have similar values, and so it was always a driving point that we want people to be happy in what they do day in, day out. We want them to have great opportunities, and it's not about just the wins of some on the shoulders of everyone else. So for me, I used to commute, for example, when I lived in LA from Venice Beach to Hollywood every day, and that was about an hour, depending on traffic, 45 minutes to an hour and a half each way. And so I never want to have to do that again. So that was also a driving position, is I want to create the reality for myself and for everyone else, and it should all be the same. It shouldn't be one without the other. So that was definitely a motivating factor. But I would say that, again, when you look at, they say that like the culture of a company often reflects that of the CEO. And I think that, in this instance, it does resonate a little bit, because I want it always to be fair for everyone. I want it has to be there's only win-win or lose-lose. There's not a middle ground. So we changed the model as well. So I would say one of the biggest challenges we have is that, BPO companies do behave that way, where they'll charge what they charge and they'll pay, a substantially lower salary. And so we have to compete with lower prices. We're not the cheapest solution in market, but that's because we pay better salaries. So, so I'd say that, like, transparency, we share with our clients exactly how much the multiplier, the team member, gets paid, the benefits. We pay healthcare, social security, HMO, PhilHealth, 13th month. We sort of have that level of transparency. And I guess the decision around all of this is that, we want to be the employer of choice. We want people to absolutely love what they do day in, day out, because our model breaks down if we don't have people in long-term positions. If we had to replace someone every 3 months, then, there would be no way to make actual money in this business, which, unfortunately, we live in a capitalist world and you have to be thinking about these things. But, it's definitely, I think I've answered the question.
Yeah, you did. I mean, it's perfectly put together, and I think it's very helpful in terms of like the business, you explaining the business side of it, because maybe a lot of our viewers, they don't really get to hear that part because their focus is just to apply and get to a job that can help them put food on the table, but never really think of these things and how the business operates and why they're paid that way. So it's very important that you explain that to us, and thank you so much for being so transparent. And that's what I like also, like when you look at the website, you'll know exactly like how much you'll get paid, and you know that a big chunk of it is going to be for the employees or teammates' salary. So yeah, that's a really great way to put it. And to wrap up everything, we've talked a lot about your experience as well as how MultiplyMe operates. I believe that there are a lot of really skilled and talented Filipinos who want to work in the BPO industry but are quite anxious with the language barrier and some cultural differences. So with your experience in working with Filipinos who serve foreign clients, for example, but are feeling anxious with the reality that they might be speaking with customers or clients from the other side of the world, like from a different country, or leaders like you. So what would you say to them to probably, ease that anxiety a little bit?
Yeah, I would say that, again, the way I look at it is that we're all human, right? And at the end of the day, like, if someone's going to bring you on, it wouldn't make sense that they don't want to see you succeed. There's not a single person that I work with today that I don't hope that they exceed all expectations, and I want to work to getting them to that position where, they're in the best possible place. So I'd say, like, when you're sitting there and you're concerned about, putting your hand up and responding, or whatever that might look like, taking that opportunity to say, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot, like, to go on some of the previous points mentioned, like curiosity, just showing active listening, being confident, taking on, if I heard someone say, let's imagine my English isn't good enough. But if I heard that they were taking a course, or they put their hand up and they said, I'd love to do a course where I could learn English, or I'm using Duolingo, or I'm doing something actively to actually self-teach and improve, or taking course, whatever it is, it's about taking those steps to improving and showing. I'll give everyone immense amounts of time to evolve and grow if I know that they're committed to the educational journey that is a part of that. So I just say, be confident in knowing that if you're gonna take the time to apply yourself, then typically speaking, I think, doesn't matter where you are in the world, it's universal. People are gonna take notice, and they're gonna appreciate the effort.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. I really like the part where you mentioned about the educational journey, because I think a lot of our viewers might, expect that they have to be this good, like they have to be perfect when they get to the company, not knowing that being in the company itself is really already a learning experience, especially with leaders like you would really want to make sure that everyone in the company would, get to this educational journey and learning experience as well. So thank you so much, Yoni, for your time, and for sure our audience will learn so much from the insights that you've shared. And if you're watching this right now, please remember to comment below what your key takeaways are and your main lessons from this conversation. I'm sure there are a lot, and I'm going to reply to each of your comments as well. So yeah, Yoni, any final words before we end?
Yeah, well, I'll just say thanks so much for having me and inviting me on. It's been awesome chatting, and I will say to all of your, I don't even know how many hundreds of thousands of listeners you have today. You just seem to continue to grow, and for good reason. It's amazing to have the opportunity to work with you as well, and just your level of diligence and dedication and your ability to just over deliver. I mean, it just speaks volumes. So for those listening who have, had to listen to me give points for nearly 30 minutes now, whatever it is, you're in really good hands with Rhea. And yeah, it's just amazing to also see your continued growth like mine on this journey that we call life.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for your kind words, Yoni. And always really grateful to be working with you now. And of course, if you're watching this and you want to know how to reach out to MultiplyMe and to Yoni, everything will be linked in the description. So go ahead and check it out after this video. And that's it for this episode. Thank you so much. Bye. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.